I have a theory called get in the game. And basically, I think if you want to go play a game, you need to go where it's played. Like, it's not that confusing or difficult. Most people say they want to make a career change, and then they send out their resume to a bunch of different sites, and they hope that they get a job. And the best way to do it, in my opinion, is go where people who are experts in the field are playing. So what I did is I ended up going to a bunch of events and conferences. I went to every finance and money and wealth and investing conference and event I could find. And as a student, there are a bunch that are free, right? So I don't know, I must have gone to 30 of them, 40 of them, and most of them, nothing really happened, but I learned a few things. I got the right words, right? Because every industry has the vernacular, you know that in medicine. And then one day I went to an event that I really didn't want to go to. It was like I had a long day of classes and I was late. And then I ended up going no matter what. My mom has a saying, which is always show up and then look for the exit. So you can go, note the exit, at any time you can leave, but just step your foot in the door, because that's when magic happens. Kind of like that line in Tolkien, right? You know, it's an amazing thing what happens, or it's a dangerous thing what happens when you step one foot outside your door. That was from The Hobbit, for you nerds like me who like that. Ollie and I were talking Harry Potter, so I was going to see if I could be cool like him. So I went and I listened to this event, and I didn't know anything about anything. But I was curious as a journalist, so I asked a lot of questions. And the woman who sat next to me ended up being a recruiter for a company called Vanguard, which is one of the largest investment firms in the world. And so she, because of all my pestering her, I guess, thought that was unique. Everybody loves to hear their own voice. And so asked me to interview for their rotational development program. And if you're young, these days, everybody tells you to go be an entrepreneur. I actually think you should do the opposite. I think you should go learn on somebody else's dime, because Vanguard puts in on average $100,000 worth of training into every new hire. I would never stay at Vanguard. I didn't like the place, but I loved starting there because they train you. I got licensed and I got to learn on somebody else's dime. When you come out of college, typically, and especially if you don't go to college, I feel like you have a lot of rough edges. You know, you make faux pas constantly in business. You don't know the language or the context. And going to a corporation, I think, actually teaches you a ton. So I'm a big advocate for starting and then go do your own thing. But these days, I feel like everybody wants to be a YouTube star right away. And you've met a lot of young YouTube stars too. Half the time I'm like, you guys couldn't fucking exist out in the real world for 4 seconds, because you don't have a lot of context for what else works in this world of ours.
On that note, so the whole what to do with your career when you're young. One view is, if you want to be an entrepreneur, just go straight into it.
Yeah.
Well, another view is, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you can learn on someone else's dime. I was interviewing someone else on the pod, Dan Priestley, and his view was, if you want to be an entrepreneur, learn on someone else's dime, but try and get a job in a company that has fewer than 10 people. Because if you work for a big corporate, you just learn a lot less about the whole business than you would if you're working in like a 8-man whatever team, where you actually have visibility over revenues, profits, all that kind of stuff. What's your take on that?
I think I'm of two minds. One, I don't think there's only one right path. Do either. I think the smart thing, though, is if you can learn on other people's dime, that's really helpful, because you'll never bankrupt yourself while working a salary, right? And so that is a really big safeguard. Because what I like to make sure people don't do is, there's a lot of like hustle porn out there, right? Like sleep on your couch for 47 years and, you know, only eat ramen noodles. And that's okay, but I'm not sure it's necessary. And I also think it's a dangerous road to think that way, because, you know, in America, for instance, people on average have less than 2 weeks of cash on hand. So if we're out there telling people all the time to go risk it all, not everybody makes it. So let's give them like a little buffer, you know, and it's okay to have a little buffer. Don't let anybody tell you that you have to hustle and focus on the one thing and Gary V your way to success. I don't think you have to, even though I like the guy. So I think you can do either. The one thing I liked about the corporate structure is they have so much extra capital that they can spend a lot on you. You know, in startups, me too. I have like 3 dimes to rub together, you know, like training, or you get like, when somebody asks me, do I get training if I come on board? I'm like, next company. There's no training here. We're too young. We're too small. We don't have time. It's like, get in, do whatever you can do. The other thing about startups that's dangerous is they grow so fast, if you're at a good one, that if you are not a self-grower, you will be quickly outgrown in a startup. And so I'm sure you've experienced it too. In most of my startups, we've, 3x'd every year. And so if somebody cannot 3x themselves in a year, they can't stay in the startup because we're moving too fast. And so you have to be careful, I think, if you go to a startup and you think, well, I'm just going to like learn a little bit as I go. This is like death by fire hose. And so yes, you can do the 8 to 10 company, but if you're the type of person where you need a little bit more time and you want to give yourself a bigger barrier between, your ability to have to level up immediately in a startup, then I like the corporate route. And I'm not saying it's fun. It's awful. I hated working in corporations. It's not fun. But just because it's not fun doesn't mean it's not good.
Hey friends, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this clip, then click here for the full unedited episode. And if you like that, then do please consider subscribing to the channel. It means a lot. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye-bye.